Good day, dear learners. I welcome you in this new lecture in which we'll be talking about disaster management with special reference to landslides and drought. So that's another case study that we'll be studying today. So by the end of the 30 minutes, you'll be able to understand the impact, the causes, and the management of landslides and drought, identify what are the disaster-prone areas and suitable mitigation measures regarding landslides and droughts. And lastly, you will be able to explain about preparedness and disaster risk reduction strategies with special reference to landslides and droughts. So let's get started. Landslides. You're familiar with landslides. You must have seen different images in the news regarding landslides. So what is landslide? As the name suggests, it is a piece of land that slides down or that shifts from one position to another position. So it's a geological phenomena that involves a sudden and a rapid movement of a mass of land. It could be either in the form of soil, rock, or debris down the slope under the influence of gravity. So for that, it's important that when landslide is there, the precursor, you can say, of the landslide or the conditions required for landslide, first is the slope. Inclination is important, right? Second would be, of course, the important force that plays is the gravity. The third important thing that plays an important role in landslides is water content. So if three things are there, so this will prove as a precursor for the land to slide, to move in a sudden and rapid movement. So like heavy rainfall, see, water content is there. So heavy rainfall saturates the soil, which increases instability and the risk of landslide. So the GSI, that is the Geological Survey of India, has predicted about 12.6% of the India's land area is prone to landslides. And of course, the mountainous region, the Himalayan region, the Western Ghat also are at the risk because of the steep slopes. This is important. And of course, the erosion that is taking place that can aid or that can provide the circumstances for the landslides to occur. Now let's have a look at the characteristics of landslide prone areas. So there's a steep terrain, just like in a hilly and mountainous areas. There's a presence of joints or fissures, or they will be loosely packed or weathered materials that should be there. And in any area that is burned by wildfire, that is another precursor, or any area that has been modified due to the anthropogenic activities such as deforestation and construction, or channels along the river stream, or any area where surface runoff is directed or land is heavily saturated with water, all that becomes a precursor or that can add to the characteristic and can make the condition all the more congenial for the landslides to occur. Now this diagram that you see, this diagram illustrates the structure of rotational landslide that is occurring. So that has evolved into an earth flow. So the term is earth flow, which shows key components such as the crown. So you see the crown, you see the main scarp, the head, and the toe. These are the part of the earth flow where a piece of land, it flows along the surface. So we call it flow because the moisture content in the soil is so much so that it creates a viscous thing. So it starts to flow. And the movement occurs across here it is occurring across the curved surface and detaches the material and it moves down. So the types of landslides, the different terminologies that are given in the form of fall, topple, slide, spread, and flow. So let's have a quick look at all these different types of landslides. Fall meaning abrupt movement. You're just traveling in a car and a big boulder comes and falls, or a big piece of land comes and falls because it has detached itself from the steep slopes of the cliff and has come down. Topple meaning forward rotation of a unit. So it might topple and it might, along the slope, and one rock can break into two, then two to four, and it can come down in the form of a debris. Then slide meaning the rock or debris, it slides through the slope forming material. Spread meaning it occurs at a very gentle slope or a flat terrain, depending on the moisture content of the soil. And flow is when it moves like a fluid, like a lava, like a debris flowing, right? I know this is a very silly example, but then you can imagine just if you're having a cone ice cream in your hand and it starts to melt. So it's kind of flows and from the cone onto your hand. So that's how the flow occurs. Now, what are the causes of landslides? The causes of landslides is like the natural causes. Of course, we'll broadly again divide it into two categories, natural and anthropogenic. So in the natural causes, we have the gravity is the main reason for landslide, right? Because the steeper the slope, of course, the gravity force can trigger any mass land to move downwards. Then climate change, if there is a lot of precipitation, a lot of erratic rainfalls taking place in hilly areas, that can also cause the saturation of the soil and bring the soil down, bring the piece of land down. Earthquake occurring there in steep slope is also another precursor. And weathering, weathering of the rocks, breaking up of the rocks through physical phenomena, through chemical or biological phenomena can also lead to landslides. Erosion, because if the trees are removed from the hilly areas, so the soil is exposed, the land is exposed. So if it is subjected to water, so the water will carry the land, carry the soil, it will saturate the soil to such an extent that it will move down. Then volcanic eruptions can also trigger landslide, because volcanic, when it erupts, it's releasing huge amount of energy, and that energy can trigger, that can shake the any boulder, can shake any piece of land, and that land can come sliding down, that can result in a landslip. Anthropogenic causes could be when humans' activities, they cause landslide in the form of mining activities. Explosions are being used. So you're already releasing so much energy under the ground, inside you're building tunnels, you're using explosive in the mountains, you're cutting the mountains, you're using drilling machines on the mountains to drill, for different, constructing different infrastructures, building roads on the mountains. So, like I said in my earlier lecture, we are making all the inhospitable condition hospitable for us. Now we're surviving at any mountain peak, any hill peak. We're building resorts, we are building roads, we are putting the electricity supplies there also. So you see, all that anthropogenic activities is basically causing your some kind of a change in the natural environment, and that can trigger the landslides. So clear cutting also, we are cutting old trees also, which are basically holding up the soil. Unsustainable tourism, of this lot of to and fro people coming on the mountain, going down, up in the mountain, the cars, the vehicles, the buses. So definitely this all will create some disturbance in the area and might cause landslide. Then unplanned infrastructure is also, because it's so densely populated now, people are residing on mountains. Now see, summer vacations are there, now people must be traveling to different hill stations, and because of that, urban encroachment into forests and disturbance of the natural drainage system also, and cutting of trees and deep evacuation on hill slopes, they all add up, and that might trigger increase the chances of landslides. And especially we have the example of Uttarakhand here. Now, what is the effect of landslides? The short-term impact would be, of course, the natural beauty will be disturbed. Our piece of land that was supposed to be there now is at the foothills of the mountains, and it has destroyed the roads, or has blocked the rivers. There's so much loss of property, of life, roadblocks, destruction of railway lines, electricity supply has been disrupted, diversions of river water because of the blockages. This is all short term. Long term would be when the landscape changes into permanent. Loss of fertility is there, population shifting, displacement, migration, effect on the sources of water, and some roads may be damaged or closed permanently because of landslides. Now, if you have a look, landslide prone areas in India, this is the map, and you can see those areas which are the very low are been marked blue, and whereas red, orange, yellow shades are the areas of very high to medium landslide prone areas. So of course, you can see it's the basically the mountainous region, and the region with high rainfall also. The topography is mountain. You can see here and here, and so this is where we find that a lot of landslides are taking place. So when we talk about landslide risk management, so let's first talk about how can you minimize or mitigate landslide. So we have, of course, the structural measures and the non-structural measures. Under structural measures, what structural changes can you bring about in order to minimize landslides? So there is something known as slope stabilization through retaining walls, through rock blocking, terracing, and checking dams that can help in, that is the structural change that we can make in order to reduce landslides. Then community-based drainage correction to manage surface runoff, because if the water is accumulated in drains, that water will cause saturation, and that will also increase the moisture of the soil in the slopy area. Then bioengineering measures such as afforestation, indigenous vegetation, and biorestoration. Then site-specific structural solution based on geotechnical investigations. Then enforcement of safe building codes and land use regulation in vulnerable regions. These all become the reason for the structural measures that are occurring. Then coming to the non-structural measures, we have under non-structural, we have landslide as hazard zonation and GIS-based risk mapping. Then we have different monitoring system also. We have remote sensing, we have LIDAR and sensor-based early warning system. Then integrating indigenous knowledge with scientific approach. We have to combine both of them together for mitigating any kind of disaster. Then awareness generation, policy implementation, and institutional strengthening. All that comes under non-structural measures, along with capacity building at every stage, from state to district and local levels. Moreover, India's NDMA National Landslide Risk Management Program, NLRMP, emphasizes holistic risk assessment. That means early warning, preparedness, slope stabilization, and sustainable development in the landslide prone regions. Now, under preparedness, before a landslide, what are you supposed to do? If you're planning to go on a hill station, first of all, stay up to date regarding the weather forecast and, of course, the official warning as well. Avoid going to those areas for recreation if you have already heard the news there's heavy rainfall or there's an official warning. Avoid construction and habitation on unstable slopes. And of course, you have to maintain proper drainage and watch for warning signs. Like even at night, we have to make sure that if you hear cracking of trees, because the trees are erect, because if the land is flowing, so the tree will move along with the land, so that the tree will start bending. Once it starts bending, the branches will start to crack. So cracking of branches, or the poles that were once erect, in the morning you see that they have shifted its position. That means the ground has moved. So you have to be very alert and very observant in the slopy areas. Then prepare family evacuation plans, and also have an emergency kit always ready in case of emergencies, right? And move to a safer location. If this occurs, where is the location that I should move in if there is a landslide which happens to occur in that particular area? Then during landslide, evacuate immediately and find a stable ground. Okay, stay away from rivers, from steep slopes and debris flow, because the debris flow is also of moisture. So you have to be very careful that you don't walk on it. You have to protect your head and body from any falling debris. And then, of course, follow the local authority instruction, whatever instructions are given. You already have a radio packed up in your emergency bag. Make sure that you're alert you're listening to the radio during this time also. Then after a landslide, you avoid the landslide area. Sometimes land moves and it comes down. So don't walk on that piece of land because it must be carrying, you never know, it must be carrying some wires, some gas lines, and some broken pieces of metals and glasses. So you have to be very careful. And plus, you have to rescue the injured persons, check for drainage, ensure safe water supply and sanitation, report hazards to the concerned authority, then participate in rehabilitation, reforestation, and slope restoration because we have to restore the slope as well. So, support, build back better reconstructional strategies. So, that was all about landslides. Now, moving on to the another case study, droughts. Now, we have to understand what droughts are and what is the effective way to manage a drought disaster. So, drought is a term that refers to an extended period of shortage of water available due to various natural as well as the anthropogenic reasons like inadequate precipitation, excessive rate of evaporation, and overutilization of water from reservoirs and other storage things. So here, drought can be shortage of water, and water will lead to shortage of food. And if food is there, and water, this shortage of water, of course, the air component will also suffer because the gaseous exchange of CO2 and O2 won't be taking place. That place will be much more warmer. It will be difficult to breathe in, you'll suffocate in that particular environment. So the IMD defines meteorological drought as a situation where when seasonal rainfall is less than 75% of the long-term average, which indicates a significant shortage of moisture. So the severity is classified into moderate drought, that is 25 to 50%, severe drought over 50% deficit. So such droughts have a serious impact not only on the agricultural aspect, water availability, but on the entire society of ours. And the thing that that is very striking in the drought-prone area is you won't find greenery there. All the green color will be changed into brown color. Even the ground you will see it will be having cracks, it will be having patches. And even the animal community that you will see, the human community that you will see, they all are being malnourished, or they won't be, their skin is not hydrated, and you can easily, it's observable that they are extremely dehydrated. So drought is a temporary reduction in water or moisture available below the normal or expected amount. Of course, efforts can be done in order to recharge the water table and and convert it into a moistened environment. But it takes time. So of course, it will take time. It will take time in order to revive and make that particular area all the more moistened. So the amount of time and distribution of rainfall, it matters a lot. And in India, if there is an erratic nature of the summer monsoons with longer dry spells and high temperature, they become responsible for drought-like conditions. So on average, 1 in every 5 years is a drought year. And in Rajasthan, 1 in every 3 years is a drought year. So drought is a relative phenomena as the inadequacy is with the reference to prevailing agroclimatic condition. Aridity is the permanent condition, whereas drought is a temporary condition. Arid and semi-arid regions are prone to drought. So what are the characteristics of drought? First is the prolonged deficiency of rainfall. There is no way in which the moisture content can be brought back together at that moment. Then it's a very slow onset. That's another thing. Just like flood, when the water is coming, it is slowly rising because the surface runoff is not there. Same with drought. The water content is not being replenished, and slowly the areas become desert, converting into deserts. So unlike sudden disasters, droughts develops gradually and may persist for months and sometimes even years. Water scarcity is there because underwater table is depleting. There's a shortage of drinking water. Soil moisture also, that the moisture of soil that is present in the moisture that is present in the soil is also decreasing. And of course, that will be affecting the crop production and vegetation growth. High temperature and evaporation often intensify the drought-like conditions. Then there's impact on the agriculture because it causes crop failure and reduces livestock productivity. Not only that, even your economic losses are there because your farming is affected, industries are affected, livelihood depends on these water resources. And environmental degradation is also there that can lead to desertification, biodiversity loss, and ecosystem balances as well. Regional variability is also there. Severity and duration differ according to the geographical location, climate, and resource management. Then socioeconomic consequences may also trigger migration, health issues, poverty, and conflict over resources. So the types and causes of drought. So if you look into drought, there's meteorological drought, which according to IMD, it exists when the average rainfall is less than 75%. So the causes could be the lean monsoon, the late onset or early withdrawal of monsoon, or the prolonged breaks in the monsoon can lead to drought-like condition. Hydrological drought could be because of two things. Surface water drought, it is connected with drying up of surface water, that is rivers, streams, lake ponds. Groundwater drought is associated with fall in the underground water table. And that could be the reason of large-scale deforestation, ecological hazardous mining, or excessive pumping of underground water. And especially with high population demand, the underground water table is also being demanded by the population. So there will be excessive pumping of underground water. Agriculture drought is the basically you can understand by understanding that soil moisture the soil moisture that is present in the agriculture field, it starts to get reduced because there's erratic rainfall or longer dry spells. So the moisture content will reduce and the soil will have no longer moisture to continue with the different activities in the cell, and that helps in the production of food. And the reason is why? Because we are using excessive use of high yield seeds also. There is a change in cropping pattern, right? Because some of the crops require water. There are some crops are very water intensive crop, and growing in the area with less water can make that particular area to agriculture drought. Even socioeconomic losses are there. So it reflects reduced availability of food, income loss due to crop failure. Ecological drought could be the productivity of the natural ecosystem fails because there is a shortage of water. And remember, water is important not only for us, even plants and animals need water. So if that same water is not available to us, plants will die, and what will happen to the animals? They will also start to perish. All the kettles and wildlife and will disappear because of the ecological drought. Now coming to the impact. What is the impact of drought? The first is the economic losses, because the cultivated area, of course, it provides some kind of an economic benefit, but once it's not there, so you can imagine the crop yield has all disappeared. This crop losses, the crops that are the people were surviving on, now they have to either buy the crop. And then livestock stress is also there because the livestock cannot have fodder to eat or water to drink. So definitely they will also suffer. Then food prices will rise, inflation will start to occur. Then seed and input scarcity, farmers often struggle to access quality seeds and fertilizers, and they won't have proper irrigation facilities because of drought-like condition. Water quality will also reduce. The kind of water supply they're going to get will be contaminated. is as good as having no water at all. You can't drink that water, you can't utilize the water, you can't feed that, give that water to the animals to quench their thirst, nor you can give that water to the agriculture field. So this also poses a human risk, health risk for a human. And of course, once you're destroying the quality of water, it was also you're destroying the water bodies and also the aquatic organisms that are present in that water bodies. Then public health at a large will also suffer because of decreased water qualities. Even our body, every cell in our body requires water content to function. So if it is not required, it will lead to adverse, not only physical health, mental health will also suffer because of that, because your livelihood is being challenged and mortality is increasing, you're not getting proper food and water. Then, of course, drought can be a contributor of wildfire also, because dry, hot, windy weather can trigger the dried out leaves. If they strike with one another through frictions, it can ignite, and of course, it can create all the more fire, and that in itself will create a lot of drought-like area. So India's drought-prone regions have been classified in this map. Now you can see there from arid to semi-arid to sub-arid. So according to the region, the arid region you can see here, desert region. This is where the deserts are there. Cold desert, the hot desert, and all these places we can find it that they're being transformed into drought-like areas. Now coming to Palmer Index. So what is Palmer Index? So Palmer Index is an index used to determine wet or dry conditions. Now you can see in the table here the type of climate and the value of PDSI. That is the Palmer Drought Severity Index. So it is a standardized index that spans from -10 dry condition to +10, that is wet condition. And it has been reasonably successful at quantifying the long-term drought. Now, drought risk management. What can we do? How can we manage the drought? What are the structural measures to take? What are the non-structural measures to take in order to mitigate or lessen drought-like conditions? So first is construction of dams and reservoir. We can do that. So in case if the nature changes its course and the rainfall is there, so we are able to preserve the rainwater and harvest the rainwater. So rainwater harvesting and underground recharge systems can be done. Development of irrigation facilities such as drip and sprinkler irrigation, which minimizes and reduces the water wastage. Then watershed management and soil moisture conservation techniques can be adopted as a structural measures in order to reduce drought. Then coming to non-structural measures. So under non-structural measures, what can we do? We can promote drought-resistant and less water-intensive crops. We can also add crop diversification and climate resilient agriculture practices. Efficient water use policies and regulation of underground water extraction can be made. Afforestation and conservation of vegetation to reduce land degradation. Then drought monitoring, early warning system, and weather forecasting is also necessary. So preparedness. So how can you prepare before a drought? You have to monitor the rainfall, store water, encourage water conservation practices in your home, in your neighborhood. Then prepare contingency plans for agriculture and livestock management, promote public awareness about water saving techniques, and ensure availability of drought resistant seeds and irrigation support. That you can do all well before any drought occurs. And during the drought, what are you supposed to do? You implement rationing and efficient use of water resources. You have to follow some rules in order to use the food and the water supply. Then provide alternative water supply for drinking and irrigation. Support farmers through relief programs, through crop insurances and subsidies. Ensure fodder and water availability for livestock. And monitor food security and public health condition. That all can be done during a drought condition. And after a drought, it has occurred. So what can we do? We can restore the water bodies, recharge underground water resource sources also. We can assess damages to agriculture, livestock, and livelihood, provide rehabilitation and financial assistance to affected communities, improve drought management plans based on lesson learned, then strengthen long-term water conservation and preparedness measures. Now coming to the relief programs or relief operation for famine and food emergency. So if you look into the primary purpose of this relief operation during famine, it is that general food rations, it involves providing nutrition planning and also donor pledging, international shipping, national logistic, warehousing, inventory, and distribution. That comes under general food rations also. Then selective feeding programs. The purpose of the feeding programs are to provide complete protection to the population groups with increased vulnerability to nutritional deficiency and to recuperate those already suffering from malnutrition. Very important aspect. We have to understand that once we are looking into the relief operation for famine and food emergency, we have to understand that the people who are suffering in these areas, they will be deficit of some kind of nutrients, some kind of minerals, some kind of vitamins, proteins. So we have to provide that proper diet according to the requirement to them, so that they don't suffer from nutritional deficiency. We just cannot provide one kind of food and be happy with it, that yes, we have done our job. No, no, no. We have to be very particular because our body requires certain amount of micro and micro nutrients that will help in the proper functioning of the organs. So definitely we have to look into that. Then supplementary feeding programs are also there, which are designed to protect the vulnerable group against malnutrition and to rehabilitate those individuals currently suffering from moderate protein energy malnutrition. This is exactly what I told you, because protein deficiency will also be there. The same goes with for the animal, for the livestock. We have to make sure that they also be given the food so that they produce. If the livestock is producing, for example, if we have poultry farms, they're producing eggs. If you have of cattle, they're producing milk, so that they're able to produce and the products that can be used by human beings. Then intensive feeding programs, which are also called therapeutic feeding, which are curative operation designed to reduce mortality among cases of severe PEM, that is protein energy malnutrition. So to conclude, now we had seen two case studies, landslides and droughts. No doubt, both of them pose a very serious threat to the lives, to the livelihood and sustainable development, which often is worsened by climate change and unsustainable human activities. So reducing their impact requires a proactive approach that combines early warning system, ecosystem conservation, sustainable resource management, and community preparedness. So if you're promoting, and especially by promoting resilience through informed planning and responsible environmental practices, so societies can better withstand these disasters and they can build a safer, more sustainable future. So with this, I have come to the end of today's lecture. These are the references for you for more comprehensive reading on landslides, droughts, and their disaster management. So thank you once again for your patience listening, and I hope you had a nice time. And I'll be seeing you again with the last lecture of this week. We will be dealing with the role of teachers in disaster management. So till I meet you again with the next lecture, take care of yourself and have a nice day. Happy learning. Bye-bye.